At 6 in the morning, my front door shook like it was about to cave in. Two men in dark uniforms stood there flashing badges that gleamed just a little too much, shoving papers in my face demanding I sign something called a consent form. By the time one of their plastic badges slipped out of a pocket and clattered onto my steps, I knew I wasn't dealing with cops. I was dealing with something worse, my first taste of the woman who ran this place like her private kingdom. I'm not a morning person, never have been. I'd stayed up until 2 finishing blueprints, so when that pounding started, I was still half in a dream, coffee mug in hand, pajamas hanging off my shoulders. But nothing wakes you up faster than someone screaming, "Police, open up!" I cracked the door, kept the chain on, and stared at these two clowns who looked like they'd just stepped off the set of a cheap cop drama. One was tall, twitchy eye hands fidgeting. The other built like a construction worker, not an officer. They talked fast, violations, infractions, unauthorized this, illegal that. Then came the real demand, join the Clearwater Lake HOA sign here. Pay up or face 50 grand in fines and seizure of my home. I almost laughed in their faces, but the way they said it calm, rehearsed like they'd done this before, made my stomach twist. I asked for real badges. They froze, exchanged a look, then pressed me again. That was enough. I set my coffee down, reached for my phone, told them I'd call the county sheriff myself. Like cockroaches, under light, they scattered muttering about coming back with more paperwork. Gravel sprayed as they peeled away. That's when I spotted the little piece of junk they'd dropped. A toy badge, the kind you could order online for $20. I stood there on my porch, sun barely over the lake, and realized someone had just tried to run a con on me. And not just any someone. Around here, only one person had the money, the gall, and the control to orchestrate fake cops. Her name was Veronica Blackmere. Everyone called her the Queen of Clearwater. I'd never met her, but I knew of her widow of a construction mogul, richest house on the lake, a smile that never reached her eyes. I'd soon find out she wasn't just running an HOA. She was running a damn empire. Later that day, she came herself. A black Mercedes rolled into my driveway and out stepped Veronica, mid-40s, polished to perfection hair, too perfect to be real nails like knives. She introduced herself, sweet as sugar, called it a misunderstanding. Said her compliance officers may have been a little too zealous. She wanted to resolve things personally. The resolution, of course, came with a price tag $25 grand up front plus $800 a month in dues. I told her flat out no. My cabin was legal private property documented to the letter. I wasn't signing into her fantasy club. That's when I saw it. A flicker in her eyes like a snake uncoiling. She leaned closer and said, "Logan, you don't understand how things work around here, but you will." Then she turned heels, crunching gravel, and left me standing there, heart hammering, already knowing my life had just changed. The next days were hell. Violation notices piled up in my mailbox, complete with my signature forged at the bottom. Fines in the tens of thousands. Threats slipped under my door. One night, the phone rang. Voice distorted and cold. "Stop digging. Join the HOA or lose everything you own. This is your final warning." My security cameras caught cars idling outside at midnight, strange men walking the property line with flashlights. I was being stalked in my own home. I started to wonder if I was losing it. Maybe I'd missed some paperwork when I inherited the cabin. Maybe I really was in violation of something. I sat at my desk with every deed, every permit, every tax record spread out. My hands were shaking. For one awful hour, I thought maybe I should just sell. Maybe Veronica was right. Maybe I didn't understand how things worked here. That was my low point. My moment of almost giving up. Then Elena Martinez knocked on my door. Retired schoolteacher, lived down the shore. She'd seen the fake cops. She knew the drill. She pressed a USB drive into my palm and whispered, "I've been documenting everything. Recordings, financials, meetings. If you're really going to fight her, you'll need this." Her voice trembled when she added, "Be careful. She's ruthless." The files were dynamite. Hours of HOA meetings, Veronica threatening residents, even talking about using her construction company to bankrupt families until they sold. 7 families gone in 2 years, their properties quietly bought up by shell companies. Veronica didn't just want control, she was assembling a monopoly. And she'd been pocketing millions in the process. I called Marcus Grant, a private investigator who specialized in HOA fraud. He drove up in a beat-up sedan briefcase scarred with age eyes sharp enough to cut steel. The first thing he said to me, "Let me guess, fake cops forged signatures threats at night." That about right. He knew her game. He'd seen it before. But what he showed me went even deeper. Veronica hadn't just built an HOA to bully neighbors. She'd murdered her husband Richard, staged it as a drowning, and used his insurance payout to bankroll a casino development scheme worth $200 million. And my cabin, my stubborn refusal to sell, was the last piece standing in her way. We worked with Agent Sarah Blake from the FBI. She'd been circling Veronica for months, trying to tie her to political corruption. A senator named Patricia Cromwell was knee-deep in Veronica's plans, greasing the wheels for permits cashing investments from overseas. It was a cancer of money power and intimidation. And I was their last obstacle. That's when Veronica struck hardest. Her men showed up in sheriff uniforms, warrants in hand, weapons ready. They busted down my door, zip-tied my wrists, dragged me into an SUV. I thought I was finished. They hauled me into an abandoned warehouse dressed up like an interrogation room. And there she was, Veronica herself, in a tailored suit, calm as a surgeon. On the table, a pistol, a stack of papers, and a confession letter. Only it wasn't hers. It had my name on it. A story about how I'd poisoned Richard Blackmere, staged his drowning, and was about to take my own life out of guilt. She pushed it toward me, smile. Razor sharp. Sign it, Logan. We'll make it quick. A tragic suicide case closed, no more trouble. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to play along. I let my voice shake, asked her why, begged for answers. And she gave them. Oh, she couldn't resist. She bragged about killing Richard with digitalis in his whiskey, about bribing officials, about her affair with Senator Cromwell and their casino scheme. Every word, every smug admission went straight into the tiny recorder Marcus had hidden in my sock. The timing couldn't have been tighter. Just as she reached for my hand, ready to force my fingerprints on that paper, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Real FBI agents stormed in, rifles raised, shouting commands. Sarah Blake at the front, voice like a blade. "Veronica Blackmere, you're under arrest." The fake deputies dropped their weapons, eyes wide with panic. Veronica stood frozen, then hissed at me as the cuffs closed around her wrists. "You have no idea what you've done." And maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't. But I knew one thing: she wasn't untouchable anymore. Justice isn't always swift, and it sure as hell isn't gentle. But when bullies build their empires on fear, sometimes it only takes one person refusing to sign, refusing to bow, to bring the whole thing crashing down.